Hey everyone, welcome to Becca's True Crime Corner. I am Becca, and if you guys like true crime and you like unsolved, solved cases, and missing persons cases, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn your bell notifications on. All right, today's case is the Lauren Spierer case. Lauren was a 21-year-old sophomore at Indiana University. She was born on January 17th, 1991, and she grew up in a New York City suburb called Scarlet. She graduated from high school in 2009 when she then went off to Indiana University. She was studying textiles and merchandise. Lauren was described as caring, loving, bubbly, outgoing, just had a zest for life, and an extremely outgoing personality. She was very active in the Jewish community at her college and extremely close with her parents. On June 3rd, 2011, Lauren decided that she was going to go out for the night. She knew that her friend Jason Rosenbaum was having a party at his house, which was not far away, just less than 4 blocks. At 12:09 a.m., she leaves to go to Jason's house. At Jason's house, Lauren links up with her friend Corey Roseman. They later decide at 1:46 a.m. that they're gonna go down the street to Kilroy's Sports Bar. Later on at this bar, there were witnesses who said that Lauren was so intoxicated that she could barely stand up. And later on, cops go to find her shoes and cell phone at this bar. At 2:27 a.m., Lauren and Corey decide to head back to Lauren's apartment. When they get to Lauren's apartment, just steps away from her door, Corey gets into an argument which leads to a physical altercation with some other students from the university. He ends up getting beaten up and takes a blow to the head. So at 2:48 a.m., instead of going to Lauren's apartment, they decide to leave and go to Corey's. It was said that Lauren actually fell in an alleyway while walking to Corey's house and hit her head because, like I said previously, she was so intoxicated that she was having a hard time standing and walking. In this alley is where police found Lauren's ID and keys. Corey says he has amnesia from taking that punch to his head and that he fell asleep that night and was out cold, and when he woke up the next day, he didn't remember anything. Corey's roommate eventually calls Jason Rosenbaum because he wanted him to come and pick up Lauren. Now that's the same guy that was throwing the party earlier that night that knew Lauren. At 4:15 a.m., Jason walks Lauren back to his apartment. He tried to get Lauren to go to sleep on his couch, but she wanted to have no part in it. She just wanted to go back to her apartment and didn't want to stay there. So he watched her from the balcony walk to her apartment, which was a couple blocks away. And as far as he saw, she made it to the intersection. He saw a shadowy figure come out and start talking to Lauren and didn't think much of it. And that was the last he saw of her. The next night, Lauren's parents were notified that she was missing. Lauren's mother immediately goes to the media and starts pleading for her daughter's safe return. When police start pulling surveillance around every area that they can, they start looking at businesses and start looking at her apartment complex, start looking at just street cameras that they can find surveillance on to see if they can see Lauren taking off with anybody or talking to anybody or just anything that will give them any clues. They did happen to come across a white truck that they noticed was circulating the area. This white truck was circling the area at 4:14 a.m. And at 4:24 a.m., this truck circles around again, and it looks like now that there is a person in the back of the truck. They hunt down the driver of this white truck, and it is ex-con James McClinish. James actually made comments to other people about how they would end up just like Lauren did. James was staying in a halfway house, which if you don't know, halfway house is when you are released from prison, but you're not fully released and you can't go and live just anywhere and they're still keeping a close watch on you. So basically you stay in their halfway house, half foot in, half foot out basically. So you're not completely cleared yet, but you're halfway there. And you have strict policies and, time restraints and everything to follow, but it's a place to live and you still have, some sort of freedom. And that's currently where he was living when this happened. The reason why he was even in jail was for assaulting his ex-wife. But when the police were expecting that he might have more answers and some clues, they gave him a lie detector test, which he agreed to, and he completely passed it, so they cleared him. Lauren's two friends, Corey and Jason, immediately lawyered up. Now, they've never been called a suspect, but Lauren's family is a bit upset that they got a lawyer immediately, and they're not talking at all. Other than what they've stated has happened that night, that's all that they've done, and they're not participating in anything else. Lauren's parents tried to put a lawsuit on them for basically neglecting to take care of Lauren that night in the state that she was in, being that they're her friends and they just let her walk home and didn't properly take care of her when she wasn't in a completely coherent state. So they tried to follow a lawsuit against them, but later that was dropped. One of the main reasons though that they really wanted to do the lawsuit was because you do a lawsuit like that and you sit down and you're able to ask a bunch of questions, which because they were lawyered up, they weren't going after them and asking them a ton of questions. So this would have been an opportunity to maybe get some more answers from them. I do want to add that I don't find it extremely fishy that they lawyered up right away. I know that the first thought to mind is like, if you're innocent, why would you get a lawyer? But the unfortunate truth is that people who are innocent go to jail every day, and they were the last ones to see her. So I don't know what their affiliation is. I'm not saying they're innocent, but I'm also not saying they're guilty. So if I were involved in a situation like that, because they're gonna look at you and they're gonna instantly think you're gonna go to the top of the list no matter what. You were the last person with that person who went missing. So I would probably get an attorney too. I know some people think that looks fishy, but just to protect yourself, sometimes that's just what you need to do. So I really don't blame them for getting attorneys. Surprisingly, there has been 2 other Indiana University students who have been murdered. 19-year-old freshman Jill Behrman went missing on May 20th, 2000. Jill logged off her computer at 9:32 a.m. to go on a quick bike ride before her shift at 12. She was due to work at the recreation center on the college campus from 12 to 3, but she never showed up. She also missed a planned lunch with her dad and grandparents before her shift. On June 2nd, 10 miles away from where she lived, her bike was found. And then on March 9th, 2003, 3 years after she went missing, her bones were found in a wooded area. She was found with no clothing near her, no clothing on her, and a gunshot wound to her head. John Myers was later convicted of her murder in October of 2006, 6 years from when she went missing, and it was built solely on a ton of circumstantial evidence. As of today, his sentencing has been overturned and they're waiting to find out if he is going to be retried or not. On April 24th, Hannah Wilson had just aced her final exam at Indiana University. She was 22 years old. She decided she was going to go out and celebrate that night that she had just aced her final exam. She ended up going to Kilroy's sports bar. She ended up getting extremely intoxicated, so her friends had called her a cab to send her on her way home. The cab driver dropped her off at the intersection by her home. Hannah's roommate hears the front door open at 1 a.m., but she does not hear it close. She does notice though, however, that Hannah's phone connects to the Wi-Fi a couple minutes later. The next morning, her roommate wakes up and notices that the front door is wide open. She goes to Hannah's room and sees her purse and phone laying on her bed, but Hannah is nowhere to be found. 8:34 a.m., Hannah's body is found in a wooded area, 18 miles from her home. She was murdered by blunt force trauma to her head, which they believed was caused by a Maglite flashlight. But they did not find any evidence of what was actually used at the crime scene. It was believed that she was dropped off there at about 3 a.m. A cell phone was found under Hannah's foot that was later found out to belong to Daniel Messel. This was a 49-year-old man who had a mile-long rap sheet of offenses towards women. one of which was him hitting his grandmother over the head with a 2x4. His house and his car was covered with evidence that he was Hannah's murderer. He later was connected to an attempted rape of another Indiana University student through DNA. Now, Hannah's murder was in 2015. This was 4 years after Lauren went missing. Hannah and Lauren went missing from the same area. This was the same type of situation. They were both heavily intoxicated and unfortunately weren't being helped by any friends or anything, so very easily could have been snatched right up off the street. David Hayden, who was a cellmate in the 90s supposedly with Daniel Messel, wrote in a letter that he helped Daniel move Lauren's body. Daniel, of course, denies knowing him and denies having any part in Lauren's disappearance. Robert Strange, who is in a biker gang called the Sons of Silence, was thought to be a suspect as well. A former gang affiliate came up and sent a tip to the police saying that Strange said he was a part of the disappearance of Lauren. Robert Strange does not have a criminal background at all whatsoever, so it's thought to believe that he was just saying this, if he was actually saying it, just to be a tough guy. One of Strange's relatives had said that Strange had gotten into an argument with Lauren over drugs and shot her and buried her in his backyard. Of course, he denies knowing Lauren and having anything to do with it. Others believe that Lauren's friends had something to do with it. It's mysterious that they happened to be with her that night. They said she just walked off into the dark and a stranger approached her and now she's missing. So a lot of people think because they lawyered up right away as well that that's suspicious, but they are innocent until proven guilty. Let's remember that, guys. Other people think that she may have overdosed on drugs while she was with her friends as well, and possibly they panicked and did something with her body. With all that being said, I want to address a few things. Lauren is still, till this day, currently missing. It has been 9 years and she still hasn't been found. She needs to be brought home to her family and somebody has to know something. I also want to say that it's not wildly crazy that somebody could have just taken her off the street. It's not wildly crazy to think that Daniel Messel might have had something to do with her disappearance. It seems like whatever he did to Hannah wasn't his first time. So there's a probability, I mean, it's a coincidence that he lived in the same area. They both went missing the same way. I don't think so. I think the possibility of him having done something to her compared to her friends is a bit more likely. She walked home heavily intoxicated and she was only 4'11" and 90 pounds. Somebody could have scooped her off the street within 10 seconds. With that being said as well though, there are plenty of bad people in this world and she might have just come across one of them. I want to say in this video though that Lauren, Hannah, and Jill are not to be blamed at all for what happened to them. Their disappearance, their murders, they are not to be blamed for it. We all have made those decisions. We all have thought at one point in time in our life that we were invincible and nothing would happen. And Lauren was right by her house. Hannah was right by her house. I mean, realistically, you feel safe in your home. You feel safe in your neighborhood. You don't really think twice about it. I know that when you're drinking, yes, your inhibitions go down a little bit. So maybe you feel less threatened as well. But tell me you've never walked home a little intoxicated. Tell me you've never made a decision even sober. I'm fine. I can get home on my own. And if you're a woman, that could be a mistake that costs you your life. You just never know. So let's not blame any victims for whatever happened to them because it's not their fault. Whoever decided to take it upon themselves to take them or take their lives, it's their fault. Also, adding on to that, I just want to say, this is why the buddy system is so important. If you don't know what the buddy system is, it's when you go out with your friends, you make sure every single friend gets home safe. You make sure that every single friend has a friend with them when they get home. No man left behind. Her friends should not have let her go home by herself that night. in Hannah's case and in Lauren's case. I'm not blaming them. It's not their fault that there's unfortunately crazy people in this world who do crazy things. But when you use the buddy system, you're less likely to go missing. If they had just had a friend who stuck by their sides that night, the outcome might not have been what it was. Always be sure to keep yourself safe. Whether you're a man or a woman, men go missing too when they're intoxicated and, you know, when they're walking around at night by themselves. They're more vulnerable. You're more vulnerable. So always have a buddy system. If you're going to go out drinking, if you're going to go to a party, wherever you're going to go, make sure you have a friend. Make sure you can rely on that friend, and make sure that your friend knows they're not going anywhere without you. You're not going anywhere without them. If you have to be that friend on a night where, like Lauren didn't want to stay on her friend's couch, she wanted to go home. Sometimes you just have to be that friend who says, I'm putting my foot down. No, you're not going home. You're intoxicated. You don't know what you're doing. You don't know what you're saying. You're going to sleep on my couch until you're sober and can get yourself home. It's the middle of the night. You're not going home. Your friend might be mad at you. Your friend might storm out, follow him home. Your friend might not speak to you for a couple days or a couple weeks, but if it saves their life, does it really matter? I've been that friend before. I've had friends mad at me before because I've been like, you're not going home with that random guy from the bar. I'm sorry, that's dangerous. We don't know him, and he might seem safe right now, and he might be handsome and incredible on paper, but you don't know him. You don't know anything about him, and I'm not letting it happen. People have been mad at me for it. I don't care. My friend was safe that night. All right, guys, that is it for today's video. If you're new around here, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on your bell notifications, and I will see you guys again